factoring polynomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So let's look at a polynomial that we want to factor that has a coefficient in front of the x squared term other than 1. So 6x squared plus 11x plus 4. Now there's a couple ways to do this, and what I'm going to start with is the guess and check method. So what we're going to do here is we know that this is going to factor into two binomials. So we'll have two terms in this one, and we'll have two terms in this one. Okay? Now, this 6x squared here, this is going to come from the first term in both of these two binomials. And so what we're going to want to look for is how can we get 6x squared? And so really the 6 is what we're going to focus on, and 6 can be gotten in two ways, 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. And the same thing with this 4. This 4 is going to come from the second term in each binomial. And so let's look at how we can get the 4. And there's only two ways to do that, 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to put these in our binomials, trying different combinations until we get it correct. Okay, so for the first one, let's try 1 and 6 and see if that works. So we have x and 6x. And we can try, for the second one, we can try 2 and 2. Plus 2, plus 2. And since everything is positive, these are going to be pluses. If this was a minus here, this would be minuses. If this was a minus, then we would have to have one positive and one negative. But in this case, since everything is positive, these are both going to be plus. So now we know that the x times 6x, that's going to give us the 6x squared, and the 2 times 2 is going to give us 4. Now all we need to do is check to see if the middle term works. And so when we multiply these two, we get 12x. And when we multiply these two, we get 2x. So if we add those together, that gives us 14x, which is not what we want. So this choice was incorrect. So we start over. Well, so this combination didn't work, so let's try a different combination. And we're just going to keep doing this and go through all of our combinations to figure out which one works. So we tried the 2 and the 2, so let's try the 1 and the 4. Okay, so now when we check the middle term, we're going to get 6x, and we're going to get 4x, which gives us 10x. That didn't work either. So we keep trying different combinations. Now, 1 and 4 didn't work, but maybe 4 and 1 will. So here we get 24x, and we get 4x, so that's going to give us 28x. That didn't work. And now we've tried every possible combination, starting with 1x and 6x, because we've gone through all of these over here. So that tells us that the 1x and 6x were incorrect. So let's switch it and put the 2 and the 3. Okay, so 2x, 3x. And let's try the 1 and the 4. So we're going to do plus 1, plus 4. And let's check this. So this one's going to give us 3x. This one's going to give us 8x, 11x, and that's exactly what we wanted here. And so this is the correct factorization for this polynomial. Okay. Now, there are some things that can speed up the process a little bit, and there are some things that can slow this process down a lot. So in this case, we didn't have a lot of ways that this could factor. There were 2 for the first terms, and there were 2 ways for the second term, and it's not too difficult to go through that full process. If these have a lot of factors, so say this first coefficient was 24, there's a lot of different ways to factor 24. That's going to make the process a lot slower. But there are ways to speed things up, and we could have saved ourselves some time if we recognize this. Okay, so one important thing that we should note that can speed things up considerably is a single binomial in this factorization cannot have any factors in common. So for instance, if I do this x and 6x, and say for the second term I select 1 and 4, and try to put them in this orientation, I know for a fact this is not going to work because 4 and 6 have factors in common, and because the original polynomial didn't have factors in common all the way through, then there's no way that this is going to work, because this 2 that these have in common would end up being a factor in common for the whole thing. So we know that this isn't going to work. And the fact that this is a 2 here means it can't possibly be plus 2 and plus 2, because no matter how I put it, one of these 2's is going to get paired up with this 6. Or if I had used 2 and 3, we still couldn't do the 2 and the 2, because one of those 2's is going to get paired up with this 2. And so we know for a fact, before we even start this process, that it can't be 2 and 2, because those 2's will always have a factor in common with at least one of these. And so that's not going to work. And so we know that that's not going to work, so we can save ourselves some time by doing this. So after going through our possible combinations, we ended up that this polynomial factored as 2x plus 1, 3x plus 4.